I say it's a good morning today after hearing what happened yesterday. I finally turned on the news. I've been going through a blackout of sorts. Colorado once more, instead of a school, this time a store. Some lunatic goes in there and starts shooting up the damn place. A responding police officer, the first responder, gets killed. He leaves behind children, family. This poor guy was going to be getting out of the law enforcement because it's becoming way too dangerous for him. He got proven right and way too late. The suspect didn't get away. He's in custody. He used an AR-15 style rifle for this. The next thing you know, a couple hours later, they're coming out on the online saying it didn't happen. It was all fake. It was all staged. It was all actors. It was. Yeah, you hear me. The QAnon people strike again. What is it with these clusterfucks? I'll say it again. What is it with these clusterfucks? This stuff you can't even see on cable for whatever stuff I'm going to be talking about at this point over here because I'll be putting people to shame concerning about those who guard and say, no, you can't say this fucking language over here, but I'm going to say this fucking language over here. What the fuck happened? I mean, I'm hearing the news reports concerning about it. I'm seeing the news reports online right now. I'm also watching it on television. But what the fuck's going on? Now they're saying we've got how many shootings over the past month or two? There's no way to blame, and there's no way to find out who's going to be the next fucker who's going to be popping his nuts off. And decides, oh yeah, let's take a gun and let's start shooting off the fucking place. Isn't this fun? Target practice. What scares the fuck out of me is my own territory is going to be next. My own area is going to be next. I'm waiting for it. Not with dreaded anticipation, not with anticipation and glee. I'm waiting for it fearfully at this point over here because I sure as hell don't want my damn neighborhood to be like that. Colorado is one of those states that actually has gun laws that say, have a gun, have fun. What gun laws? AR-15, guy walks in with an AR-15 and shoots up the place. The reason why we have gun laws is to make sure that we don't have nut jobs out there. The problem is who's a nut job and who's not. Second Amendment out there was critical when our country started up. And this country is going to go through another round of gun rights at this point over here. We're going to be going through another round of discussions of what's needed for gun rights and gun laws and for the reasons why. And I have been trying to keep track in my head, and it is way too many. I've since the 1990s or 2000s, how many shootings did we have? But prior to that, we had more shootings. There was an area of Granada Hills. Jeez, now I'm going to be talking about the damn police officer who got killed on this one. Fucking duck. There was a shooting out in Granada Hills along Rinaldi Boulevard of a Jewish center. The term postal. A postal worker of the United States Postal Service. Something went wrong in his head and he committed mass murder. They coined it back in the 80s of going postal when workers finally decided they had enough and going to start killing people left and right, or people just decide they had enough with everything else and they're going to start killing people left and right. I don't know how long it's been going on. I don't know how long. I would have to go through all the stats and charts and figures on this one. And still, the guns, the existence of the guns are still being debated in Congress and being debated by everybody else. Don't take away my gun because I love my gun. I love my ability to quote unquote defend myself from all the nut jobs. And yet, walk around in camis. Oh, I don't walk around in camis. I walk around in blue jeans and t-shirt over here. I got a gun over here. I'm ready to shoot some crazy person. He's a crazy person. He's wearing a badge. He's a crazy person. Let's shoot him. And have the cops shoot back. Someone goes into a grocery store with an AR-15 and shoots people up. It's bad enough having the gun rights and people who are the Second Amendments who believe in the existence of Second Amendment above everything else. They'll support and defend their ability to kill people. They call things tragic, but now we got nut jobs. Now we have extenuating circumstances of keeping our guns. Meanwhile, what you've got on the other side is QAnon supporters going out there saying, it didn't happen, it's not real, no matter how much blood there is, no matter how much shucking up people out there, it didn't happen. Thousands and thousands of fuckers online claiming this damn thing didn't happen. It's all fake news. I'm wondering if it's a damn Russian conspiracy. I'm wondering whoever's fucking running the whole damn QAnon conspiracy isn't a fucking Russian or isn't a Putin agent. I wouldn't put it past the son of a bitch. I would not put it past the son of a bitch. This is Tuesday, boys and girls. This is the 22nd or 23rd of March. Coming up to the end of this month. And we must have more shootings. We must have more bloodshed. We must feed the gods and the Parthenon idiots of the Second Amendment who consistently say, we want our guns because we want to protect ourselves at this point over here. And yet we're the same fuckers going out there and killing people. But then we categorically can deny it. They worship an entity called the National Rifle Association. Nothing but a bunch of corrupted, egotistical, sorry sons of bitches out there who are greedier than shit. Got caught with it too many damn times. I don't know, and had to change their organizations from one state to another state, from New York to Texas, to make sure that their headquarters are protected. Protect their sorry, egotistical, corporate asses. It's not just corporate. It's not just corporate. But we must hold true to our fucking guns. Out here in Roseman, California, they must hold true to their fucking guns. They want more concealed weapon permits. Carry concealed weapons for their handguns, for their weapons. There was one veteran who held automatic and semi-automatic weapons on his property somewhere. When the fear of everybody has to put you and a gun hooked up to each other, it's a really sorry, sad-ass day. But now it seems like everybody has to carry a sword in their hands and ready to stab someone at a second's notice without even realizing the other guy is not planning on killing the other person. But you never know. Therefore, you have to commit mass murder to protect yourself. How else do you explain this shit? How else do you explain somebody popping off like this? I mean, I should have been watching this damn thing yesterday, but I was so damn wrapped up in my own damn personal things called education, such as worrying about a group read of a book from William Faulkner called As I Lay Dying. And some of us students in this class, of this English literature class, of a community college that I'm attending in the Antelope Valley here in California, We're going to be talking about certain sections of the book and some of the characters, about what we thought, what we felt, what we experienced. I also today have to attend another college course because I'm taking courses, hopefully to educate and open the mind for anything and everything. And what I've been experiencing over the past God knows how long in my lifetime is more human tragedy than I ever thought possible than a Shakespearean style story could ever talk about. Worse than reading about Richard Richard II or Caesar because I'm seeing it on a constant basis. Lying, backstabbing, cheating, denying. Welcome to politics and welcome to reality. Welcome to civilization as we know it. It's not happening as I was trying to kill your ass over here. Put you on pause for right now. The prosecutor and the U.S. attorney have all met for quite a while now. And CNN. Poppy Harlow's show. Daniel Oates, retired police chief of Aurora, Colorado. They're going to be asking the public for assistance with any information they may have about the suspect. I think they'll likely release the name of the suspect and information about him. They have to be careful, though. They want to wait to make sure that they've secured his residence for a search before the name is made public and possibly contacted any immediate family members. But they're going to be asking for assistance from the community at this point. They also will be providing more details. I suspect that we're probably at a point where there may be information about the deceased. One of the things they're going to prepare for is the questions they'll get from the media and what they can and cannot release. It's very, very important to the detectives who have to make a case against this shooter that they not damage the investigation with releasing information prematurely. So, for instance, I know there's a lot of questions about motive. If they have any information about motive, really that's for the trial because justice is the most important thing right now.
Yeah, and you make such an important point. There will be a trial because this person was apprehended alive, and so that changes, right? What they can release publicly. I remember Aurora like it was yesterday. I remember being on a different story and being called to race to your state to cover the shooting at the movie theater. And I remember being, camped outside of that movie theater for the better part of a week, covering it and the tragedy and all of the aftermath of all the victims and their families. And that was 2012. And you went on CBS after that, and you said, unfortunately, the way America is today, this could have happened to any parent anywhere in the country. And then you said, this is something as a nation we have to deal with. I mean, Chief, that was in 2012. That was almost a decade ago. And yet here we are today. I wonder what you think about that now.
Well, let's put it this way. One of the questions I guarantee you the chief is going to be asked at this press conference is about gun control policy. And I remember being asked a similar question in 2012 at my first press conference. And why is it we turn to law enforcement leaders who work for elected officials and in a crisis ask them about gun control policy? Why aren't we demanding more of the folks who actually set gun control policy in this country, our elected leaders? All the same issues are going to come up. Red flag laws, background checks, waiting periods, all of these things. Now, could some of those laws have had an impact on this case? Maybe, maybe not. But as a nation, we've got to come to grips with the easily accessible firearms in this country, including weapons of war. I understand this was a rifle, an AR. Incredibly destructive weapon, 10 times more powerful. The energy released into the human body of a handgun, and yet freely accessible in our society. It's curious. It's interesting. We have 10 deceased in this incident and no wounded. What does that say about the power of that weapon?
What does it say to you?
It says it's a weapon of, to me it says it's a weapon of war, and I think most police chiefs in this country would agree it doesn't belong on the streets of America. Or if it's going to be available and accessible to Americans, that there should be some sort of reasonable control as to who has access to those weapons.
Why is this happening time and time and time again in Colorado? of a series of hearings to discuss steps to reduce gun violence in America. Democrats have promised a Senate vote on expanding background checks. It comes on the heels of both the mass shootings in Boulder and in Atlanta, Georgia, just in the last week. Manu Raju was on Capitol Hill. Good morning, Manu.
I'm cutting it right here. That was a former police chief who was over in Aurora, Colorado. And he also saw it. What happened in this movie theater? This one idiot comes in there mentally disturbed and kills people left and right. There is no way of detecting mental health. At least no direct way. There's no blood test, no nothing like that. Mental health is something neurochemical and also emotional instabilities and whatever is going on in this person's mind and life that puts this person in a pathway to go nuts. Where this person is going to be finding a gun and deciding, okay, he's just going to kill people for the fun of it. Or trying to end one's life one way or another because of something going on in his head, some kind of mental head game, I would think. I'm not an expert in mental health or in anything else. But after keep witnessing shootings after shootings after shootings, and then politicians keep like crazy. And then the people, some of the people said, yeah, we need to get gun laws, and the other ones are like, I won't take a gun here, and I'm going to keep it in my hands. I'm going to surgically plant it in here. You're not going to take this gun from my hand unless I'm cold and dead. It's mine. It's my old Bessie here. Bessie's a damn thing. I don't care. This armor-plated gun here. Yeah, well, the emotional triggers, the psychological triggers, whatever it is, puts a person on a path where they have to go self-destruct. And you got to take people with them too. I would love to find out if there was only a direct communication of why the person would be explaining the why to God and hear the conversations between these two of why this had to happen in the first place. I'm holier than thou. You weren't there for me, but I worshipped, and you weren't there for me, so I had to kill a lot of people over here to get your attention. You killed a lot of my kids. Why did you do that? Well, you weren't paying attention to me. I mean, how many times have I kept trying to tell you that? You didn't love me, and I had to find ways to find that out. And the only way to get your attention is by all this and then by getting killed. How come you didn't love me? I killed people on the altar for you. Did I say for you to do that? Did I honestly tell you that you needed to do this? You slaughtered innocent people, women and children, to catch my attention. You got my attention, the wrong attention. Well, you should have been paying attention to me in the first place. I'm special. Well, one of my kids are special. What's going over here? See, but you didn't demonstrate it to me. To me. I'm trying to put it facetiously as I can, but the horror of the damn thing is to put a human being on an altar like that and mark him up for blood just so you can get a deity's attention or someone's attention. I had heard stories and I wasn't quite sure if it was true or not. That in order to get someone's attention, you had to kill someone else for that. There was an actor or an actress who was being stalked one way or another. And in order for this person to get their attention, they must kill. They must murder. Because they wanted this person's attention. There are the sickest insane reasons ever used in order to justify murder. You had a madman in the country who had been through a war as a processing clerk. The country has been through financial difficulties because the other winning side countries had forced this country who waged war into further debt and ruin, that he had to marshal their anger and their ire against the world into a force so threatening and breaking all rules and regulations and agreements at this time that they were willing to commit genocide. Other people didn't realize it. Other people realized it but didn't want to hear about it. And then the ones who actually did participate in the situation, how did they feel about it? How was it ever recorded that they made this decision willingly to go through this? Or were they had a gun pointed at their head? In some circumstances, yeah. And they'd done it so well that they closed themselves off emotionally. In this situation we've got right now, a shooting in a town, in a supermarket. Doesn't matter where the location is. A guy brings a weapon in and decides he's going to let loose. It could have been in a mall, which has happened. A shooting, which is done many times, even by students who fear and feel they have no other choice to get attention but to kill. To fill that, whatever it is that they've got going on inside, that inadequacy. Or to feel, quote unquote, powerful. That they have life and death in their hands. And they choose death. There have been times when I've heard arguments, back in the 80s and 90s, a lot of 90s, that Congress had argued that the shootings and the murders happening during that time was all because of video game violence. Well, maybe. There we go.
To begin in Boulder, Colorado. It's going to be on time. I'm going to give you. Okay, they just said it's going to be on time, so that means in just a minute or two you're going to hear from the authorities in Boulder, the police officers there, the police chief. She and her entire team will speak to us. Remember, we don't know the names of 9 of the people killed in this mass shooting. We only know the name of one, that is Officer Eric Talley, who bravely ran into this massacre. He is survived by his spouse and 7 children. Who are the other victims? We may get their names. Also, what was the motive of the shooter? All we know is that an AR-style rifle was used. But what drove the shooter there? Remember, the shooter has been apprehended, so there will be a trial. So what they can share may be limited, but again, this is about to begin at any moment. Okay, we'll bring it to you as soon as it starts. Meantime, AstraZeneca this morning, the drug
And while they talk about on CNN about the drugs, my attention span's going to be on that tube, watching CNN. Watching Poppy Harlow try to cover another wave of humanity that has gone absolutely insane. I'm pausing this because I want that on record. I know they have their own copyrighted material at this point over here, but damn it, this is important to be on record. I'm not going to continue to talk. Well, hell with it. I think I'll just continue to talk because I'm still outraged about it. No, I'm not going insane at this point over here, like taking a gun and saying, I'm going to find the next idiot, the next fucker to shoot his ass. I'm just trying to understand why this had to happen in the first place. Why? As I said before, I had seen too many accounts of people popping off their heads, including the kids, back in the 90s, when they were playing video games left and right. The arcades came out, then they had the consoles, and then started having the computer games left and right. And how much controversy there was. In the computer magazines that they had, the computer newspapers that covered materials like this, they had covered weeks and weeks of hearings happening in Washington, D.C. Some of it you'd hear on the regular news, and other times were just so damn buried nobody gave a hoot about a damn thing. So it took specialized magazines and newspapers out there on the streets to cover it. Computer Times is one of those guys. I remember watching the news about it and reading more and more information about it through the papers. And it should have been sinking in during that time. It should have been sinking into the head more and more that it's not exactly computers causing it, even though the conservatives during that time and conservative public thought it was video games. They thought it was immoral, denigrating. It was dehumanizing, and we must get rid of them. Video game society came out. Not society, but developers, the writers, the creators, the company architects, the CEOs were fighting Congress left and right because they wanted to get a rating system going. The games are also getting too damn violent. It causes a lot of things happening in people. Therefore, we must limit the games one way or another. It was the gaming industry themselves that decided they were going to be putting the limitations on themselves. They're going to be putting up the age bracket. Certain ages would be able to play the games, and other age limits would not. Strongly suggested to the retailers to follow up. And when you're at a retailer store, hardly anybody ever followed the damn thing in the first place. It wasn't an enforceable law. There was no laws in the locals or the states or national on it. It was the own imposition of the. Here we go. Hold on.
Shooting last night. Listen.
At the King Soopers at 3600 Table Mesa Drive. The Boulder County Coroner's Office worked overnight to identify all of the victims and notify the next of kin, which I'm extremely grateful for. The last victim was removed from the scene at 1:30 a.m. today. By 2:02 a.m., all the victims had been identified. By 3:59 a.m., the families of the victims had been notified. I'm going to read the names of the deceased. Denny Strong, 20 years old. Nevin Stadinsky, 23. Ricky Obbs, 25. Trelona Barkanoviak, 49. Suzanne Fountain, 59. Terry Liker, 51. Officer Eric Talley, 51. Kevin Mahoney, 61. Lynn Murray, 62. Jody Waters, 65. Our hearts go out to all the victims killed during this senseless act of violence. We are committed with state, local, and federal authorities for a thorough investigation and will bring justice to each of these families. Regarding the suspect, at approximately 2:40 p.m. on Monday, March 22nd, officers were dispatched to King Soopers on Table Mesa Drive. Officers arrived on the scene within minutes and immediately entered the store and engaged the suspect.
Chief Mayor's Herald.
Exchange of gunfire, which the suspect was shot. No other officers were injured. The suspect was taken into custody at 3:28 p.m. He was transported to the hospital for treatment, now in stable condition. This suspect has been identified as Ahmad Alyssa, 21 of Arvada. He has been charged with 10 counts of murder in the first degree and will be shortly transported to Boulder County Jail. A press release with his identifying information, the victim's information, will be forthcoming. I appreciate you being here. And I want to say to the community, I am so sorry this incident happened. And we are going to do everything in our power to make sure this suspect has a thorough trial and we do a thorough investigation. And with with this, I'm going to turn this over to Governor Polis. Sir?
Thank you, Chief, for your extraordinary work the last day and a
Here
half.
comes the
There's going
politicians.
to be a lot more ahead. And of course, I'm standing here not just as governor, but as someone who's called this community my home for most of my life and who's shopped at that King Soopers and Table Mesa many times across my life. And my heart aches today, and I think all of ours does, as Coloradans, as Americans, for this senseless tragedy, the loss of life, as we hear those names. Everybody, and Boulder County is a small community. We're all looking over the list. Do we know anybody? I'm sure that we know people that know people, people of all ages, and people who started their day with a cup of coffee and reading the morning paper, or perhaps getting their kids ready and putting on a winter coat to go out. Maybe they were making last minute spring break plans, but none of them expected that this would be their last day here on the planet. It's a simple run for milk and eggs, getting ready to shop, going in a regular way we all live our lives, something that we can all identify with, led to a complete tragedy here today. Our hearts ache for those who lost their lives, for their families, for the survivors left behind, for the survivors who were able to get out, who have
Governor Jared
scars
Polis.
that can't be seen but are every bit as painful. And I want to thank the Boulder Police Department, the first responders, so many police from agencies across the state who came to the call in a time of need. Not only did we lose 10 lives, but this is real horror and terror for all of us. This simple act of shopping at a grocery store. And in the last day and a half, last 12 hours, the families of our victims, our friends, they've been notified of their loss. That's why these names weren't released yesterday. The families have been notified. Everybody quietly hoping that it wasn't your friend or your coworker or your family member. Many residents of South Boulder had people checking in with them. Are you okay? Are you okay? Posting on social media. Are you okay? And look, this loss is especially painful for the friends and the family members of those left behind. And as governor, I offer my condolences to all those who suffered loss. But this is a loss for all of us, and we mourn those who fell as a state, and we mourn them as a nation. This has been a painful year, and we sit here once again surrounded by seemingly incomprehensible, senseless loss. This is a pain that we need to sit with. We can't let ourselves ever become numb to the pain, because we simply can't let this be accepted as anything close to a normal occurrence. There's a full investigation underway. The eyes of the nation are on Boulder. The eyes of the nation are on Colorado. And every level of law enforcement, federal, state, and local, is working together to make sure that we can bring justice in this case. That's exactly what Boulder Police Officer Eric Talley was doing as he lost his life in the line of duty. He was heroically trying to save others. The state of Colorado has 35 people from the Colorado Bureau of Investigations and state troopers assisting the investigation since yesterday. We've offered to help with victim services as well. And of course, Boulder community has the full support of state and federal law enforcement as we go about the difficult task. The unfairness of it all is difficult for people to process. Flags had barely been raised back to full mast after the tragic shooting in Atlanta that claimed 8 lives, and now a tragedy here close to home at a grocery store that could be any of our neighborhood grocery stores. This last weekend in Colorado, many of us had the opportunity to enjoy the beautiful spring outdoor weather, spending time in the great outdoors. A sense of renewal, a sense of hope ahead. Perhaps that we were on the precipice of normalcy. I hope that the victims today got some simple pleasure stars that we cannot see, space to celebrate the 10 lives that were lost yesterday. And we need the fortitude to carry on. We will hold the evildoer responsible to the full extent of the law for his actions. And we will always remember the victims of the King Soopers shooting. I want to turn it over to the congressman from the area, Congressman Joe Neguse.
I'm putting it on mute. I've heard enough from politicians what they're going to do, what they're not going to do. And they're going to talk about what they're going to try to do. But this is tragedy here. They're going to talk about gun rights. They're going to talk about gun laws. What they will do, what they won't do, and what the people will be going for and not going for. They talked about this decades ago, and nothing had been done on a national or local because people had decided their gun rights and their guns are more important than other people's lives. And therefore, it's imperative for them to keep carrying guns instead of getting rid of them. So, they want to see America well protected. They want to see more security. But it's been said that if you're going to be getting rid of security, you might as well be giving up our rights as well. You can't have security, and you can't have freedom, and you can't have your rights because you're so barricaded. As someone with a gun would hold the power, and the power is fear. Yeah, they need to protect their ass left and right. That's why we have cops, security guards. But security guards are only observe and report. But if everyone carried a gun, and the whole world becomes a massive target. And wearing these will become a constant thing if it's not already. Tragic events try to bring us together, and sometimes they tear us apart. Especially when we feel like our own rights and our own existence are going to be debated upon. Unless you already know the tragedy, unless you've already had people died from guns, from gunshot wounds, you won't know the horror. You don't want to know the horror of the day by day. You can't sympathize, you can't empathize, you can't feel any empathy for anybody because you haven't gone through it. And hearing politicians with their practice words just gets more and more monotonous because nothing else is going to happen. We're going to be bringing out more and more psychologists to talk about it. Mass shootings, what goes on with the guy or with anybody who decides that a gun is the only way out. I mean, how many times people have said that if you have problems, talk about it, talk to other people about it. Just don't act on this. And what they end up doing is most do whatever they can to listen. But some of those have already been past the edge already. It's already been in the pit. They don't care. The honest to God don't care. And they will kill because there's nothing else left for them to do but to feel it and do it. No matter how many times they've been talked to by other people. The hardest thing is you'll never know which person is the next landmine. And therefore the argument for the guns continue on. Because you'll never know which person's going to be the next generation killer this time. Now we have to carry guns. Now we have to carry everything else with us. We have to carry weapons of mass destruction with us. We got to carry something with us to protect ourselves. while taking other lives at the same time. In some instances, it's been justified, other times it hasn't been, especially when errors of judgment call into effect. When you have a gun of any sort in your hand, you have the power of life and death, and it is a very heavy responsibility. I suppose people are going to be asking me, have you ever been a gun owner? I said, I had been living with one for all of my life. I had to rely on him for his decision and his training. I had to rely on his decency to not shoot people. And he would have. For protection. Therefore, it would make the arguments for all the gun owners saying, see, see, see. And then again, I knew someone else thought otherwise. Listening to all the politicians talking about how bad the shooting was and what they plan on doing, it's the same argument I've heard time and time and time again from every place possible. Other people tried to rise up and argue and protest as best as they can. And it's still not enough because we're still in that stage. We're still in the stage of disbelief and denial at this point. No matter how many people can try to use logic and justify the whole damn shit. We haven't been able to do so for a hell of a long while. I'm sorry. When the times we had the guns necessary back in the revolutionary days, there were a hell of a lot of different times and different people during that time. And they were fighting for survival with every other Tom, Dick, and Harry nation out there. They had to make rules and charters and treaties, and sometimes they broke them in order to get what they wanted. And I'm talking about the original 13 colonies. I go back as far as I can. I cannot justify the shooting. I cannot justify owning a gun. I can't think or understand why any of this had to happen in the first place. But it has. And it will still continue to happen because we don't know any better. The news stations will be covering their different aspects and how they're looking at all the politicians talking about what they're going to do, what they're not going to do. It's still the same rhetoric I keep hearing left and right. Nothing changes. Some people will march over to Washington and have hearings like they tried to do from Parkland, Florida. And some of these people got ridiculed left and right because they thought it was all stage acting. In fact, you have one particular congressperson who snuck in through there, who kept attacking the victims, attacking the survivors. And now she's a congresswoman getting her ass kicked in Congress over it because of her controversial remarks. And meanwhile, all the survivors out there are still fighting mad because nothing else has happened in Congress. Nothing changes, nothing changes. And we're going to continue to be this way for the next, I don't know how many more decades. We'll always have plenty of bodies. We'll always find a better weapon to kill ourselves because we still haven't found the way, or at least continue to struggle on, and how not to kill a person, especially when we have a lot of issues that could have just been handled in a different way other than killing people left and right. It's one thing if you're going to be killing people and feel remorse about it. No. That's not the ones you look out for. It's the ones that look at you with dead eyes, with lifelessness in them. Because they've already made a decision deep down a long time ago. They were already dead inside. They just didn't know it. And they didn't care. They didn't care what about the body count. They cared about the damn black hole they had inside of them. And they were going to get rid of it one way or another. They were going to fill that hole with anything they could, including bodies and blood and innocent screams. And they were going to constantly fill it up. Until they themselves either shoot themselves or get themselves shot in the process or actually get captured. Either to get marked insane or else they're marked as able to understand, able to comprehend, and able to be put through trial. Most of the time, they either are locked up as insane or they're locked up for a few years at a time, almost a life, depending on what the politicians and the voters have decided. And still, they will decide whether or not to keep gun laws or change gun laws and keep certain guns or not keep certain guns. And the problem is with our society, we're too ingrained with the gun. With our history, we are too ingrained with the gun. And that is our albatross around each other's necks.